The Z28 badge on a Chevrolet Camaro is not just a name or an option package. It's an ideology, an immortal icon of American car culture. However, the harsh wheel of history spares no one, and not every Z28 born was blessed with the power of a god. Let's rewind the clock to 1970. Back then, a Camaro Z28 was an absolute terror on the streets. Its heart was the 350 cubic inch small block V8 engine, producing 360 horsepower and up to 380 pound-feet of torque. It was an insane, powerful, and proudly roaring machine. Fast forward to 1981, and everything felt like a nightmare. Strict government emission regulations and severe fuel shortages completely choked the American automotive industry. It was still the same 350 V8 engine, but its power was now pitifully strangled down to a mere 175 horsepower. The quarter-mile time plummeted to a sluggish 16 seconds. The golden era of high-performance V8 machines seemed officially buried. But right in the middle of that silent darkness, a rare glimmer of hope sparked. A series of incredibly special turbocharged Z28 Camaros, not born from GM's factory assembly lines, but from the workshop of a legendary dealership. They brought the greatness of American muscle cars back exactly when people were most desperate for it. Welcome to Maison Cars. Today, let's pull back the curtain on the mystery of a turbocharged Camaro you've probably never even heard of, the 1981 Yenko Turbo Z. If you are a true gearhead, a die-hard American car fanatic, the name Don Yenko and the Yenko Chevrolet dealership in Pennsylvania is undoubtedly a monument. Don Yenko wasn't just a car salesman, he was a racer, a mechanical magician. In the past, he was the mastermind behind the big block 427 Copo Camaros of 1969 machines that have become the most expensive legends in today's collector world. Entering 1981, Yenko and his team faced a massive headache. They understood that. Even though automakers were forced to suck all the fun out of cars, the thirst for speed in their customers' veins remained intact. The problem was, Chevrolet's order option sheet was now completely empty. There were no more giant big block engines, no more factory race machines for Yenko to simply check off on an order form. The most powerful engine they could stuff into the Z28 at the time, as we know, was just that anemic 175 horsepower V8. They were pushed into a corner and they had to get creative. That creativity led Yenko into a new technological horizon that was shaping the future at the time, the Turbocharger. In the early 80s, turbocharging started becoming a new trend. GM had experimented with Buick's turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 and Pontiac's turbocharged 301 V8 on the Turbo Trans Am. On the other side of the globe, Nissan also put a turbo on their 280ZX. The picture was crystal clear, turbo was the future. Yenko quickly seized the opportunity, partnering with the manufacturer Turbo International to bring this system to his sluggish Z28. So how did they do it? Unlike modern electronic fuel injection systems, Yenko's modification used a blow-through setup, meaning the turbocharger would compress and force air directly through the carburetor. It sounds primitive, crude, and potentially risky compared to the system on the later Buick Grand National, but believe me, it worked incredibly well. These Yenko Turbo ZS ran at about 7 psi of boost, and the boldest part, they didn't use a wastegate at all. There's an interesting fact here. The weakness of the factory engine actually turned out to be a perfect advantage. The 81 Z28 V8 had a pathetically low compression ratio of just 8.201. In the world of naturally aspirated cars, this is a boring number. But in the world of turbocharged cars, a low compression ratio is an invaluable gift, preventing the engine from knocking when forced with high-pressure air. The Z28 suddenly became the perfect candidate for turbocharging. To this day, Don Yenko never published any official documents stating the exact horsepower of these Turbo ZS. However, automotive experts estimate this monster produced somewhere between 250 and 300 horsepower. To see the massive difference, let's weigh it against GM's strongest rival at the time, the Pontiac Turbo Trans Am with its 4.9-liter V8, making 210 horsepower. On the first April-mile track, the Trans Am struggled to finish with a time of nearly 17 seconds. Meanwhile, the Yenko Turbo Z tore through the wind, crossing the finish line in a blistering 14.5 seconds. To handle this new power, all of Yenko's 350-engine Z28s were paired with the durable TH 353-speed automatic transmission, sending power down to a 10-bolt rear end, with 3.08 gears, a perfect ratio for the car to maintain acceleration on long stretches. Yenko didn't just sell an engine, he sold a complete machine. Customers could choose between two levels of upgrades, Stage 1 and Stage 2. Stage 1 was the standard version. Customers received the turbocharged engine, along with a few interior and exterior tweaks. The most notable addition inside the cabin was the redesigned instrument cluster to make room for a boost gauge, the most magical toy of that era. But if you were a true player, Stage 2 was your soulmate. Stage 2 transformed the Camaro from a straight-line dragster into a sports car capable of swallowing corners whole. It featured an upgraded suspension with renowned Koni shocks, wider wheels and tires to maximize lateral grip, and a series of chassis stiffening mods. Inside the cabin was a luxurious space with premium leather seats and a smaller, more responsive sport steering wheel. And how would people know you were driving a Yenko Turbo Z on the streets? Very simple. The car's exterior featured an extended, aerodynamic front fascia. Furthermore, the word turbo in bold 80s graphic style was plastered massive and prominent all over the car's body. Rest assured, anyone within a 6-mile radius only needed a quick glance to know you were riding a turbocharged monster. Fast, cool, unique, and the savior of an entire muscle car generation. But why have you and I almost never seen a Yenko Turbo Z rolling on the streets in real life? The answer is full of heartbreak. The entire production line only yielded a mere 19 units. Specifically 16 Stage 1s and exactly 3 Stage 2s. Don Yenko's original plan was much more ambitious. But the fatal hurdle that choked the sales of this model, ironically, was its astronomical price tag. Let's do some math. In 1981, a factory-stock Camaro Z28 cost around $8,000. However, to own a Yenko Turbo Z Stage 1, your bank account would evaporate by $11,000. And if you wanted to get your hands on a Stage 2, that number was a staggering $17,500. Put simply, you had to pay 1.5 times more for the modifications than the core value of the car itself. It was just beyond imagination for the economy at the time. And an even sadder truth, these 1981 Turbo ZS were the final Camaros ever built by Don Yenko's own hands. Just 1 year later, in 1982, the legendary Yenko Chevrolet dealership closed its doors forever. Today, Turbo ZS are the rarest unicorns among all Camaros bearing the Yenko badge. The whereabouts of many of these 19 cars remains a veil of mystery. A few years ago, one unexpectedly popped up on a sales forum in New Jersey, but then quickly faded back into silence, with no one knowing who the new owner was. It is very likely that somewhere out there, in the old barns of America, a few of these priceless machines are still sleeping under layers of time's dust, waiting for the day they are brought back into the light. That is the brief but groundbreaking and bold history of the 1981 Yenko Turbo Z, the machine that resurrected the pride of American muscle cars in its darkest era. Thank you for joining Maison Cars on today's journey back through history. If you found this documentary fascinating, don't hesitate to drop a like and share it with your fellow gearhead brothers. And most importantly, hit that Maison Cars subscribe button along with the notification bell, so we can keep bringing you the craziest stories from the four-wheeled world. See you again in the next videos.